From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. Brought to you by Grim Reaper Broadheads. Watch 'em drop. Gold Tip, the toughest arrow you'll ever shoot. Gilly Monster Outdoors and Vapor Trail Outdoors. World-class hunting and fishing products. Striper Express. With Bill and Chris Carey on Lake Texoma. Vineyard Max Deer Products. And Warncke Enterprises, your full-stack digital and media production marketing agency with a specialty in the outdoors.
Okay, Froylan, tell us what you do.
Okay, so I am the Desert Bighorn Sheep program leader for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and what that job entails is, coordinating and working with the Desert Bighorn and Desert Bighorn Restoration and Management.
Great. 15 years, you said?
15 years, yep, okay. 15 years in this position and 20 overall with Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Okay, very good. And you enjoyed that job? Is it rewarding?
I love it.
Do you find meaning in it? Tell me a little bit about what makes you get up for work every day?
I love it. I was told at a very early age in my career, and even before my career with Texas Parks and Wildlife, I was told you find a job that you really, really like, and you will never have to work a day in your life.
I love that. I believe that so much.
And that's, luckily I'm in a position. I've been in a position that's exactly what I do.
So you plan to maybe retire here if possible, right?
Well,
on this trajectory, you think?
Yeah, I am, unless they run me out, unless they,
unless they change their mind.
Yeah, unless they change their mind about me, then I might reconsider. But I do. I love my job. It's challenging. It's rewarding. It has everything that I want and need out of a.
Sure. No, I'm enjoying this because what you do has to do with a very, I think, underrated and underlooked animal when it comes to what you specialize in with the Bighorn program. So how do I ask this? Because the other thing is that you don't know about me is I hate to admit I'm a deer trader. Okay. So we know a lot about. So you know what I'm saying. I don't want to be remembered for that. Yeah. So let me go ahead and just make this very clear on this podcast. At my funeral, if any of you attend, that is one thing that I do not want brought up, that I ever sold over $1 million of axis deer in 1 year. I don't want that brought up because I don't look. It's a den of thieves. The problem is the people that get into that. Okay. And I'm not saying they're all like that. I'm one of the few in the way I just differentiate myself with my clients. I sell live exotics to, hoof stock to, is that I'm one that's still left that has character and integrity. And I get business all the time with those two things because that's what good old boy farmer rancher type, even guys with what we call a gentleman ranch that basically has 5 acres, kind of high fence, that kind of stuff, that wants to run a little bit of, but the thing is how do I ask you about Texas Bighorns?
Well, and that's
the fact that they believe that there was a mating between a mouflon and a desert bighorn, correct?
That there was a hybridization.
A hybridization, the Texas, not the Texas, the Thompson Temple. The whole thing with that whole deal. You know what I'm saying? What they consider an exotic, that's kind of a hybridization of a mouflon and a bighorn.
Yeah.
What do you know about that? I'm just curious because I've always wanted to ask somebody that deals with bighorns on that.
Well, and so interesting that you asked that, because some of the issues that we're going through now, they're starting to revisit those surrogate mothers, hybridizing, those kinds of things. And so
is that problematic? Just on a high level.
Well, it can be problematic depending on how you look at it. And so I'll clarify that I'm a traditionalist. Mm-hmm. In terms of wildlife management, exotic. So I'm a traditionalist, but I also consider myself pretty level-headed and reasonable person, and so I understand and get why some people do the things that they do, and I'm also for private property rights. I support all those things.
It's 97% of Texas is private property for the most part.
Exactly, and so.
But you also work for the state of Texas, so I'm trying to understand both sides.
So that's just it. And so going back, I guess, to the original question, those are some of the things that are being talked about now. Me being a traditionalist, if I had a magic wand that I could wave it over and make things cool again, then I would. But I'm not. I don't have that magic wand, and so what I try and do is I play with the cards that are being dealt.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah, and that's all. And
Anybody can do.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to stick my head in the sand and pretend that things don't happen or there's not those issues out there, because they are. I like to keep an open mind. I'm willing to have conversations, and if that's the direction that we need to go to quote unquote save a species, then repopulate.
Yeah. But the thing is, like as well as I do about domestic, well, not really domestic sheep, like a mouflon cross, like a YO mouflon cross. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like as far as exotics go, like that's a hybrid of a I can't remember, like a Barbadogie mixed with a mouflon.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I've dealt with so many, like, I guess we would call them domesticated sheep. We're talking Texas dolls and Barbadoe and those kind of things, which is a great thing, especially to get a kid on as a first exotic for them to hunt. My son shot one with a bow, with a crossbow one time. Absolutely loved to hunt. He's got it mounted on his wall, But it's to most people that know farming and ranching in Texas, we look at those as that's a black belly. Like we discount it because it broke my heart the first time to find out that they're all the same sheep. They're just different colors. You know what I'm saying? Like the black Hawaiian and all that stuff that's been like kind of popularized, and that kind of stuff. And Chester Moore and I have talked about this many times together about, wild sheep versus kind of the domesticated sheep that we hunt, but they're really like a Catalina goat's just a Spanish goat. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we call it a Catalina mountain goat. Yeah. It's all about appeal, like really almost sex appeal for like, oh gosh, that looks sexy. I want to go shoot that. Well, I'm just like, what's the point of being a hunter though if like we don't conserve the native game first?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm excited to talk to you
about this. And so this is an interesting, very interesting conversation.
Well, you didn't think you'd be walking into this one?
No, I love it because these are conversations that we have and that that I have with folks. Because I'll be honest, there's folks within the agency that find it hard to make that connection. That find it hard to make that distinction, or to say, okay, let's open our minds and let's talk about these things and stay open.
Versus like we're on this path.
Yeah, versus this is it, and we're not going to deviate from that. And so I find it interesting because again, I like to that's not what I believe. But let's have a conversation. I don't know everything. Right. I don't know everything. You might teach me something. So let's learn. So I cover from that perspective. There's lots of issues with the bighorn in the bighorn world right now, and because we're talking about exotics, the issue that we're facing right now is the Aoudad or the Barbary.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that too, because look how populated, and they reproduce like kittens.
They do.
People don't realize until they put some on their land. I'm like, you better have some rocks somewhere. You better have some terrain, for them to climb or whatever. They're not going to be happy. Don't put them on some flat land in East Texas. You know what I'm saying? But like the whole idea is that's a very serious consideration to a threat to the desert bighorn or the bighorn ram of Texas. And I think that's.
Well, and so again, going back to the whole exotic thing, they're being problematic. They're causing lots of issues. Are they here to stay? Can we do anything about it? Are they an exotic? Yeah, they're an exotic. Yes. Can we do anything about it? Well, we're trying. Are they here to stay? Yes, they're here to stay. They're here to stay because people want them. People hunt them.
The horse is kind of out of the barn on this deal. In other words, right?
Yeah.
In other words,
there's
the country term goes.
There's no way to remove them now.
Yeah,
they occur in in big densities. I mean, when I say large densities, I'm talking 2,000-3,000 to a mountain range, at least 2,000-3,000 to a mountain range. And when you only have 100 or 200 bighorns in that mountain range.
They're kind of outnumbered.
Yeah, outnumbered. They are,
and they can also transfer. I learned this last night with the presentation we had on the film festival we had here. Is learning about like the fact that they can pass, respiratory illnesses
Yeah.
or whatever onto bighorn
Yeah.
sheep. And like that concerns me because I thought, oh, all exotics are great, but again, at the same time, you're still talking about an invasive species that's not native
Yeah.
to this land. And that's another problematic thing that I think that I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I
and
wasn't educated.
So it does. So they outcompete the bighorn, and they impact our mule deer. We have got research, and we're looking into not just the pronghorn, the bighorn and the mule deer. We're also looking at, do they impact the pronghorn out in the flats? What is that doing to the livestock industry, to those landowners? And then more importantly, is what do they do when they occur in those densities to the habitat? And so 2,000-3,000 Aoudad on a fragile landscape, if landowners are making money off of them, it becomes we're not going to be able to win that fight.
Right.
When landowners are making $60,000, $100,000, $250,000 of additional income a year, we're not gonna win that fight. And I get it. I totally get it. I'm for private property rights and all those things. So I totally get it. Our goal now is not removal, it's not total removal. Our goal now is, okay, let's get the Aoudad populations down to levels.
Management.
Yeah.
Right. As far as number management.
To get them down to a level where they don't negatively impact our native species. They don't impact the habitat, and then they can all live fat and happy lives. That's the goal. It might be a dream.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I wonder how folks that have wildlife biology background like you, do y'all in the sheep world, are the Aoudad looked at as the feral hogs to the deer?
Well,
I had to ask that question. My God,
they are. They are looked at like that.
Like they're a nuisance almost. Like they're an invasive species that's directly affecting. See, I had no idea. I know I've been out of it for a little while, but I mean, as far as studying what the Wild Sheep Foundation is concerned about, and what other conservation organizations are focusing on. But man, this is enlightening to learn this from you.
Well, and so the thing is, we're almost because we're all hunters, and we all like to hunt. Mm-hmm. And then when I say we, I'm talking wildlife biologists or wildlife managers. Yeah. And so we're charged with managing our native species, but you're also a hunter. Yeah. And so we have this internal conflict. We manage for, in my case, we're managing for bighorn, and you're removing a hunting opportunity. Yeah. And if you're a hunter, you're trying to maximize hunting opportunities. So there's that internal struggle.
It all factors in together.
Yeah, it's more complex than just Aoudad mixing with bighorn or impacting bighorn, because we're going through our own.
It's just because the thing is, that's a $2,000 hunt to somebody that's 30 inches, but it took 10 years to grow that. So you don't want to just. It's like growing pumpkins. You don't want to kill your golden goose that's laying the egg over there. That's But ewes, I mean, whenever we trap ewes in the exotic business, they're worth they're almost worthless. Lambs are worth almost nothing. Yeah. But as far as with $75, $50, and I'll tell a landowner that, and they're like, oh, but I'm like, dude, they don't sell for anything. For whatever you can get for it. So, but I kind of find that interesting that's the problem though, is we need to fetch more for the ewes and get rid of those. Yeah. So we have less, and more rams that survive. But either way, if they interact with each other, that's a whole different story.
Well,
in the wild,
and so we're looking at the problem from all types of angles, right? And are at the issues and trying to resolve those issues. Mm-hmm. And so we've got research with collared Aoudad, collared bighorn, collared mule deer,
to kind of see their tractor movements, see where they're going. Yeah.
And what's interesting is, it appears that you would have to remove 80% in an Aoudad population. You would need to remove 80% of the ewes, and that would only keep the population stable. That's not even.
Oh my goodness, 80%.
80% of the ewes would have to be removed. And that just keeps the population stable. That's not putting a dent in.
See, that's almost like the fact that there's too many people, which everybody claims of it. There's too many sheep, but at the same time, you're sitting there going, okay, but how do you remove, besides setting up a round trap or whatever, which I got experience in working in that industry, or that that kind of small tight knit industry of exotic capture, but the thing is, though, I mean, if it's not worth anything, so why don't we like work on like a plan to make Aoudad ewes really like in demand to go somewhere else? But the thing is, where are they going to go?
Well,
I mean, we don't want to put them somewhere else because there's probably there's probably desert bighorns.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we do when we fly surveys, and sometimes even in addition to bighorn surveys, is we'll do aerial gunning. And so we'll go and when you have,
I mean, like lethal, like
right, lethal, yeah.
Oh, y'all just shoot,
yeah, just shoot indiscriminately. Everything that you encounter,
like hunting hogs.
Well, exactly. In fact, there's legislation going on right now to include Aoudad in what they call the pork chopper bill.
Pork chopper. I forgot that's what they called it. I didn't mean to have it out for a second. The pork chopper bill.
Yeah.
The way you said that so matter of factly, I thought that you're just so serious about. They call it pork chopper bill. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah. But so there's, but even with that,
so including exotic wildlife as a whole.
Or just Aoudad for this go around.
What about coyotes?
Oh, so there's already ways for landowners to go out there and aerial gun.
That's right. But it's not part of the pork chopper bill.
No. So
they called it that. That's okay.
Yeah. So they're adding Aoudad, to the list, and that way landowners can go out there because we try and do it, but we only fly once a year. Every now and again, we'll fly our property twice a year. But if Aoudad,
basically just shoot.
Yeah, basically shoot.
So just thin out the numbers.
Just to thin them down. We've been somewhat successful in some areas, such as Big Bend Ranch.
Okay.
We've been aerial gunning at Big Bend Ranch since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we first started, we removed like 2,500 Aoudad. And we've been doing that year after year after year since 2006. And every year we fly, we still remove about 300 Aoudad.
Oh my goodness!
Every year out of that property. So all we're doing is maintaining.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, like it's kind of like feral hogs. We joke around that you shoot one and then 4 come to its funeral and then they mate and then they have like 8 more and then like it's just like a perpetual. And so I've often joked about for years of talking about hog hunting and writing about it and that kind of stuff that we can't barbecue ourselves out of that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like I wish we could. I wish it would be that easy. And the ironic thing is, and this is a little bit mixing faith with the outdoors here, but. Like the ironic thing is, we could solve world hunger with a feral hog and the extra Aoudad, but the problem is the people that would be eating it can't eat pork. Yeah. So what if they could eat?
Well, so here's the thing: when you talk about Aoudad and you ask folks what do they taste like, the reaction is like, oh no, they're horrible. This, that, and the other, and that's because what they're eating is a mature.
Like a ruddy ram.
Yeah, ram. And so, it's
not like a ewe or
but if you were eating a ewe, a yearling, or a lamb, for your listeners that know what cabrito tastes like, it tastes very similar to cabrito. And I grew up on goat.
Okay, so I was going to say cabrito's goat is what we refer to as goat because of the Spanish word for that. But I see that it's similar to. That's good to know.
Yeah, and so to me,
harvest all. Yeah.
Well, and so I joke, but I've often thought, well, what if we were to be able to get all those carcasses and give them to some exotic restaurant? And I'm not an entrepreneur. If I was, I would have explored that option, a lot earlier. But sell it, and I don't know why Seattle comes to mind, or some of these places that do have
fancy hoity-toity.
Yeah,
parts of Austin too.
But, right,
Dallas,
Houston,
whatever.
Yeah, and go and make it available as an exotic meat.
It would be like the sales pitch, being that I'm a marketing agency guy. I'd be like I posted this up here tonight. Alien sheep. If Chester was here, he'd be rolling over laughing. Right?
Yeah, and they're
they're like aliens, man. I think they look cool, but I mean,
they're grass fed. So you feed into that, and so I think there's a market there. I haven't really. And one of your listeners, he's going to be the guy. I heard that boom, and he's going to come up with the idea.
If it would have been so already, if somebody hadn't have thought about that, then why aren't we like besides Broken Arrow Range up in Oklahoma or whatever? That's like taking that and shooting them with our sharpshooters and our marksmen. Basically selling exotic meat. Yeah. Okay, Broken Arrow Ranch is well known for doing that. It's applying it to other places and that kind of stuff too. But you can order stuff right off their website. Last I checked. I'm not making an ad for them. I'm just saying that's an example of people now why it has not been with as fast as axis deer and aoudad for that reason reproduce, which are next to black buck are some of the fastest reproducing prolific species you will find in the state of Texas. Why has somebody not farmed axis just for meat production?
Yeah.
Why didn't that happen? Like I'm not. Look, if that's your idea on listening to this show, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, like, you've got a great idea with the
and so here's a reason why, or I guess my opinion as to why it may not have happened. Excuse me. And so we were approached, and we've been talking to folks that dog food industry.
Oh.
And so they went down that road. If you go in there, you'll gun 200 and 300. Can we get them and the process?
For aoudad?
Aoudad.
Okay.
Yeah, aoudad.
Okay.
And could you make dog food out of them?
So the state was actually like.
So we've had conversations. Yeah, we've had conversations with folks, and when we sat down at the table, and we told them how it was, and everything
how it worked.
Yeah, how it worked, and everything that involved. Mm-hmm. They said it would not be cost productive.
Of course. Hey, you follow the money. It's just like what we've said the entire time we've been here is you follow the money, you'll see where the problem lies or where the solution is. You know what I'm saying? Because I've often joked about with these big companies and everything else. Jester started saying this years ago too, being a big conservationist. He who has the gold makes the rule. That's the golden rule. You ever hear that? My dad taught me that. And I'm just like, that was some good, I don't know where I first heard that. I guess it was my dad. But he who has the gold makes the rules. That's the golden rule.
Yeah.
And it's so true because look at these corporations that are going to say, it's not cost prohibitive. Well, guess who's still left with the problem then? You know, and then the state's having to find other places.
Yeah, and so we did. We explored that. One thing that often comes to mind is here, Aoudad, again, they're from the Barbary coast of Africa. Their populations there, they're decimated. They're struggling. And so I've often thought, well, capture them and reintroduce them back into the Barbary coast of Africa.
Well, then you'd be asking to do the same thing in India for the black buck of the axis too, because there's more here than there ever will be.
Yeah, and so some of the things that came. Yeah, well, some of the things that.
But you're right. Like that would be cost prohibitive for the state to pay for that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many darn sheep? Not sheep. How many darn aoudad would you have to load up in one I don't know, C-130. I mean, how would you get them across the way to that besides put them on a boat?
Yeah, and so then so you've got that. You've got a whole disease issue.
There's so much stuff here, man. It's not just a simple answer.
No,
we would just do that.
No,
and I wish most wildlife issues, as far as conservation and invasive species, were that easy.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Barbecue your way out of a hog problem. Ship them back to to where they're from, the Barbary coast. For aoudad. I mean, that would be easy if it was easy.
Yeah, no, and
there's no easy button.
No, it's complex, and then you got landowners making money off them. They're not going to give up a source of income. Again, I get that. I want to make sure that the audience knows I get that.
Yeah.
So it's challenging.
And the thing is, they're either hot or they're not in the exotic market.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know that the state of Texas, because of CWD and that kind of stuff, and you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, but as far as kind of the exotic industry, as far as aoudad being part of that, and then you've got the, of course, you've talked a lot about, sheep preservation so far here, conservation here, but as far as wild sheep go, I'm sure, but, and I know that's your main thing, but I'm interested in what's coming down the pike, if you know of anything that should concern those of us that are in the exotic industry, as far as buying, selling, trading, owning exotics. Do you know of anything that's legislation, that kind of stuff that should be is that still cool? I mean, is that going to be regulated one day because of CWD issues? Do you think? I mean, you don't have to answer this.
Well, and I will. One is I don't know, because I'm a little bit removed.
Yeah, sure.
From the whole
you're
CWD.
Dealing with your own department.
But as far as hearing of anything, I haven't heard it.
Okay, I'm just curious because there's this kind of the rumor mill that goes around this small circuit of people that buy, sell, and trade exotics and own exotics, that are interested in this. And most of us, a lot of us, hang out on Facebook.
Yeah,
we do a lot of stuff on there we shouldn't do that we, what I'm saying, get away with. But the thing is, that's why I've been in Facebook jail 5 times, by the way. I'm actually at Facebook jail, gold medal, because they don't allow adoption or the sales of animals on there. And the joke I have with that is because before it was no sales of animals because we're worried about abuse and neglect, but you can rehome or adopt. And I'm sitting there going, if you don't think that rehomed and adopt animals aren't getting abused and neglected, I got another thing going. Yeah. But the bottom line is that a lot of us hang out on there, and there's always these kind of little. Have you heard? You know, the state of Texas, like there's this talk that like we're concerned that because of the elk, which I find ironic, and this is great for an outdoor podcast, elk is considered an exotic species. Buffalo considered an exotic species.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
at one time, I'm sure we had like grizzly bears at one time. Like they're not anymore because like we chased them all away. But I'm just saying, like it's interesting, like the way that the state.
Yeah, and so you ask, have I heard anything? And the short is I don't.
Okay.
But I do know that a lot of these things are politically driven.
That's the thing. That's my point.
Are politically driven, and so.
We certainly don't want to comment on it. I'm not trying to take
if I knew, I would try and shed some light on it.
Right, at least to understand.
Yeah, but I don't. But I do believe, and I know this just through personal experience with the in the wild sheep world, is that sometimes politics will trump biology.
You're right. It's happened. It's happened. I mean, there's proof of that in multiple places.
Yeah, and so when that happens, me as a wildlife biologist, what can I do?
Yeah.
Other than, man, I know it happens, and I have to be okay with it, or go find another job.
That's right, or else it'll eat you alive.
Yeah.
You can't let it eat you alive. You got to do your work.
Yeah,
but at the same time, like the value that you get out of that, as far as like what do I do with this here? What is your mission?
Yeah. So to me, what I do with stuff, as the example I just gave, is it can't be all biology. It just can't, because you're dealing with people, and people just with all types of people, but also politicians that are in the game and whatnot. So it can't be all biologists, but it can't be all politics either.
Yeah, you're right.
So where is that line?
Where's the middle ground?
Yeah, where's the middle ground? Yeah. And that's what I always strive for. I strive for the middle ground. And I've always said, if whatever politics comes down the pipe, if it compromises my principles, then I'm out.
You couldn't like morally do it or ethically do it if you didn't believe behind it. Yeah, and I think that's very special about you.
So I've got to say, okay, I know there's going to be some politics involved in the decision. I can live with it. But once it begins to compromise my principles, then I need to start looking.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
and I hope it doesn't. I hope that this goes the way that I really feel like being around this circle of influence that we have here. That I know that you just saw today, but. I mean, it's just the stuff that we experience, the stuff we talk about on camera, off microphone, whatever. Like we really, we care. Like we're on your side when it comes to the state of Texas and the federal government and that kind of stuff. If we all are after the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you say that, because I was just fixing to say, I know that there's folks in the industry like you that want to do the right thing, that are doing the right thing, that are following regulations, that are following the rules and all those things. And there's folks, much as like there are folks in the agency that might bend the rules and that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
That's where, even if you're trying to do the right thing, and the majority of y'all are trying to do, I say y'all, the people
we get outnumbered sometimes.
And so. And so there's so rulings come down, and you're impacted, even though you had nothing to do with it.
That's why with some of these issues, yes, I get passionate and worked up about them, but at the same time, you can only control what you can control. Like you, with your future, with your position, yes, if something comes down that you don't agree with, and it like goes against everything you believe, then of course, you're going to do what feels right for you too. At the same time, or else have to live with like doing a job that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that?
Yeah. No, so it is. In the exotic business, as you know, it can be lucrative, and it makes money, and there's a market for that. And I'll go out on a limb and say that there's a place for that also. Yeah. And so, am I able to marry all those things together? Yeah, absolutely. I'm able to do that.
I'm not. I'll slow it down here. so we can get off the train here and go do other things. Thank you for joining me, by the way. This has been such a pleasure, too. And I don't mean to talk over you. I just get so excited.
Yeah.
The thing is, we play off of each other well in this communication, so I have to jump in sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you good.
What, like, the value and the meaning that you find in what you do, I mean, what does the future look like for you? And what would you like to see? How could a person like me add value to your life in promoting what the state would like us to do as people concerned about sheep conservation?
Yeah. Well, and so there's several ways I can answer that, but I'm going to try and be as concise as I can.
It's okay.
Yeah. And so we're talking about exotics, and we're talking about the influence of exotics
sure.
and those kinds of things, and how exotics, at least in the bighorn world, Aoudad, how they impact the natives and those kinds of things.
You probably didn't think we'd talk about that.
No.
You had no idea what you were walking into.
Well, I didn't know what the questions were going to be like, but I knew that they would have to be somewhat bighorn related. But
where do you put your value?
Yeah.
And do you put your value back in the conservation of something that's as important as a desert bighorn and the native survival of that, or do you put your money in? It's a question of value. What do you value? Is that hunt really worth $3,000 when it's an invasive species that's encountered? See, that's the questions I like to ask to hunters, because do you really care about what it means to be a hunter?
Yeah.
Do you really care what it means to be a conservationist?
Yeah.
Because by default, even though you do, their outfitter, everybody else makes money on the deal. Is that helping or hurting?
That's a great question. That is
I think it's a good question to end on.
No, it is. It's a great question. And
are we helping or hurting by what we are doing right now?
No. And so I've told this to not just here today, but anybody that I talk to that's willing to pitch the story out. I make sure that I thank them, because it's because of folks like you that are in this industry that get the story out. I can only reach X number of folks.
Yeah, I know.
But y'all broadcast it out.
Yeah.
It gets people thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all I'm trying to do is just ask some questions and just ponder some answers.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers in the conversation we just had, because it's like yes, there's this, but then there's this that affects this. It's all symbiotic in a way, but it's also non-symbiotic in a way. It either helps each other or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And walking through all that, I get a lot of energy of, okay, these are the questions. So, write me with your answers.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dustin at dustinsprojects.com, Dustin at businesswithdustin.com. Froylan, any other way to reach you besides, you have a social or anything?
Well,
I don't know how you can do it the state of Texas.
I'm not a social media guy.
That's cool. But anyway, thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much for, great insight, great conversation. I hope you don't think this was crazy, because
no, not at all.
I just had fun learning from somebody that actually works in the state of Texas and asking these questions. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for what you do.
All right, thanks a lot.